When talking about compact phones, we are always enamored by the concept, the thought of a pocketable device. But when it comes to the specs, there's always going to be some kind of compromise on the performance or some other aspect compared to the bigger devices. Well, the story was different in the past though, when Sony released the Xperia XZ1 Compact, the smallest of their high-end lineup, yet it manages to keep most of the specifications of the bigger flagships. So what's so good about this phone that it still manages to get many fans today? Let's find out. The XZ1 Compact lives up to its name, sporting a 4.6-inch screen in the old school 16:9 ratio, and that means no black bars when watching YouTube. And although it is 720p, the small size of the screen means that it is as sharp as ever. Being an LCD display has also benefited in the long term, as there is no burn-in at all for this 8-year-old phone. The omni-balanced design has also stood up to the test of time as well, sporting sharp, sleek lines encased in a fiber-infused plastic that looks and feels quite similar to metal, while still keeping it light in the hand. Now I have here 2 units of the phone, with a more mainstream black version and a more stylish mint colorway, which reminds me of the Hatsune Miku collaborations, also from Sony. You'll get to see why I have to have 2 of these later on in the video. Now the screen uses Gorilla Glass 4, housing some quite chunky bezels, but contains very good dual front-facing stereo speakers, on this small of a phone no less. Other Sony touches include the no-tool removable SIM tray. You only need to pry out the little indent to reveal the SIM slot, and that includes expandable micro SD storage. There's also the dependable headphone jack and the dedicated 2-stage camera button, a no-brainer for Sony Xperia devices. The heart of the XZ1 Compact is the Snapdragon 835. Pretty much the top of the line for 2017, and it's still able to keep pace in the modern day. This system on a chip still suffices for everyday tasks like web browsing, social media, and it doesn't heat up as quickly as the furnaces of the Snapdragon 888 or a Gen 1. The HD screen also means that there's less pixels to drive, and thus the XZ1 Compact can still do a little bit of gaming, so long as you don't push for max settings. This little Xperia is also quite efficient, making the most of that 2700 mAh battery, giving me up to 5 hours of screen on time, doing basic tasks with the Ultra Salmon mode, turning off most functions, apps and radios to extract every last drop of that battery life. Xperia phones were one of the first to include a trickle charging mode to extend durability, which means slow charging times, but the battery life has held up quite well even for these used models. The software shows its age the most, as this phone's last update is Android 9, practically ancient. You do get to take a sweet trip down memory lane, with Sony's live wallpapers reacting whenever you unlock, a themed navigation bar, and the custom Sony clocks. My favorite is the vertical one. Sadly, there's some bloatware that can't be removed, and we cannot forget Sony's 3D Creator app as well, which allows you to scan your face into a 3D object, because everybody wants to see your dismembered head floating around in 3D, right? After you're done scanning, you can morph your face with hilarious and unsettling results, such as becoming Megamind, becoming a Giga Chad with a gigantic chin, becoming whatever this is, or I can make my head look like a pear. Anyway, if you want to use this phone nowadays, I would suggest unlocking the bootloader and installing a custom ROM. On this unit, I have a Lineage ROM based on Android 12 with some tweaks, but you can find newer Android versions as well, although I've opted for this one as it has so far been the most stable. It's completely revitalized the XZ1 Compact, breathing new life into the phone with a modern UI, providing all the rooting and modding potential you would ever need from a phone like this. However, there are some downsides to the unlocking process. As old Xperia phones, they have an annoying DRM key mechanism thingy. Essentially, it breaks the camera functions once you unlock the bootloader of the phone. Hence why, on my black XZ1 Compact, the camera just refuses to focus at all, and attempts to use any third-party camera apps result in just solid green wall pics. And that's why I now have two of these phones, one of which I use as like a EDC carry with the custom ROM, and the other to play with the camera and the stock Sony firmware. Speaking of that camera, don't let the 19 megapixels fool you. It's a pretty mediocre snapper, even for its time, let alone nowadays. Sony uses some like proprietary version of a Camera 2 API, so I can't even get raw capture out of this phone at all, and any Google camera mods are just not compatible at all. In good lighting conditions, the pictures are serviceable, but most detail is smoothed over by aggressive noise reduction, and at night, the pics basically fall apart. Sony also pioneered 960 FPS slow motion capture, but the output is quite compressed, and you will need plenty of light if you want good results. With these kinds of camera weaknesses, you can see why I don't really miss it that much after loading the custom ROM, yeah? The XZ1 Compact sports only 32 gigs of storage, and whilst you can add a micro SD for pictures, files, and photos, apps will still install into internal storage, so you are really confined with what you can put in here. One last drawback is the side-mounted fingerprint sensor. It makes for a sleek and low-profile design, but is infamous for being finicky and breaking down with age. The same has happened on my units, with the black unit looking unscathed, but is now very unreliable, unlocking maybe 1 out of 10 times. And with the mint color unit having a visibly damaged sensor from its previous owner, although it can still pick up my fingerprint periodically. At the end of the day, the Sony Xperia XZ1 Compact remains a rare gem, a true compact flagship in an era where small phones mean major compromise. The XZ1 Compact is a bittersweet reminder of what we've lost. A no-compromise small phone in a category that is now almost non-existent. So for those willing to tinker with the custom ROMs, the XZ1 Compact remains a compelling and actually sought-after device, and a nostalgic reminder of a forgotten age in the evolution of smartphones. And I think that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you again for your support, and hopefully we'll be breaching 4,000 subs quite soon. If you want me to cover more phones like these, definitely like, subscribe, join my Discord so we can talk more about these phones and other gadgets as well as audio reviews, and donate to my Patreon if you want me to get the budget for more devices for covering. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the next video.